You're live. You're live. You might be live. Okay, instead of the tropical or the other, whatever. I'm not wearing adventure gear. I'm still wearing my more casual. I'm not going to make a separate travel theme channel. I'm just going to do these from now on episodically, I think. I have a separate one I think I would like to talk about. Okay, let me separate this. We'll start from the beginning and we'll break it down as we go. Okay. In the holiday world, I think we have kind of two main classifications. You've got your day trippers and your vacationers, right? Now, this is not counting the stuff like going to a wedding or going to grandma's house for Christmas, kind of annual stuff. But it's every year you have a certain amount of free time that you can schedule in and how you want to allot that. So some people like to vary routine, do the same thing every time. Memorial Day, we always do this, and I'm kind of that way with certain things. And then other stuff, it's more like, well, we have 2 weeks. Do we just want to go to Disneyland, or do we want to try and see like a bunch of different stuff? And when I grew up, my family was more in the regular routine, very like, we're doing this, we always do this. But then that once a year trip, it was usually more like, let's do something different than we did last year, at least slightly. Okay. And so now, as a, I don't know, semi-functioning adult or whatever, I'm technically more of the day tripper. And that's what I was going to get into a little bit more in the other video, which I want to talk about specifically Los Angeles residents. Your life might be all fabulous and you live in LA, but sometimes you get bored and you want to do something else. And that's when it's kind of like, is it too far to drive and make it home or not? That's when it becomes a day trip. So Santa Barbara, yes, you can do that in a day if you're not that worried. You want to go to Solvang for lunch, have dinner in Santa Barbara, and still make it home. It's doable, right? Yosemite, on the other hand, too far. Yosemite's trying to cut down on the day trippers because you have all those neighboring communities that have gotten big now. And so it's cutting into the enjoyment for the vacationers and the park maintenance and that kind of thing. So they're trying to keep people from, just going to Yosemite for lunch or whatever. And putting a strain on the park staff or whatever, the trails or something. I don't know. Congestion, traffic. Couldn't get the photo I wanted because there was 5 other people. I don't know. Whatever your complaint might be. So that's a separate issue. But like I said, you're not making Yosemite and back in a day from Southern California. It's just San Diego, probably not either. It's a little too far. You're typically certain places like Solvang, they're expecting you to spend a night, at least one night, because it's famous for that quirky architecture, but those quirky architecture buildings are mostly bed and breakfast. Okay, so I was gonna do a separate video about like Solvang, Santa Barbara, and Ojai. So if you have any questions, tune in later. I'll talk about those places a little bit more. I don't think any of them will rate a whole video by itself, so I'll just kind of clump them. This particular video, I'm really going to go into more depth. This is going to be a long one, so hopefully people will sit through most of it and then still want to see other ones. But I was going to do a longer trip, and I had talked about this on the channel elsewhere 2 years ago originally because of all the Butte viewers I get. So if you're watching this, chances are you're one of my Butte enthusiast guys. So you've already been to some of these places and you don't want to hear my take on it. Whatever, fine. you always go fishing with your dad at this spot when you're a kid, so now you always go fishing there at that spot, and you want to take your kids, whatever, all that kind of thing. Like I said, there's no judgment on which of these is better. It's just which are you more able to do or more inclined to do. If you don't have a full 2 weeks, or you do have 2 weeks, but the first week is spent all doing maintenance around the house, and it's stuff that you have to do and you just can't get around it, then you're only going to have a week of actual vacation. So yada, yada, yada. So you might want to make multiple day trips and just try and do it that way. Or you might want to spend the whole day driving one day so you can sit around and fish for 4 days before you have to drive back. Like my dad kind of thing, right? I'm going to get at least one day out of Memorial Day weekend where I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and then we'll worry about getting home on Monday, And then Tuesday is back to work. So this episode, I guess if you want to call it that, I'm going to talk more about the parts of Northern California and Southern Oregon that I'm not super familiar with, but I'm a little bit familiar with. And I have, some receipts to prove it. So the big one that I was going to do, and I don't have a better map, but I was going to go up through Bend, Oregon to Spokane and see the Butte companies there, and then loop back through Idaho. I don't know, I had one of my cousins was working there at a golf course, and then the other one might have gone to see him or so. So I don't know if they were both going to be there or not, or if one of them was going to be there or not. And then there was another place in Montana, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know where they are now. It's been 2 years. I was going to maybe stay there for a night or whatever, and then come back down and go through Yellowstone just as an excuse, and then Bryce Canyon and whatever else, and really make a nice big loop of it. Well, not just for financial reasons, but for other reasons, that trip didn't really end up happening. And so then last year I modified. It was going to be Eugene, Oregon, to go see the Truman boots and the Drew's boots, or White's boots sold by Drew's or whatever. I was going to look into that. And then I ended up finding some online and just bought those instead. So, excuse me. So whatever. And then from Eugene, I wanted to go to they have a aviation museum there. There's a littler one. And then there's a bigger one up near Salem that's Smithsonian affiliate or whatever. And I still wanted to do that recently, but turns out that the little one, the mom and pop deal, is only open Thursday through Saturday, so that was no good. And the other one was farther than I wanted to drive, so there's that. And then I thought somewhere in there I would go to Crater Lake still, because Crater Lake was super easy to do if I'm going to Bend, because it's like right by there. Whereas if I'm going to Eugene, they're not really by each other. It's a longer trip. Yada, yada, yada. But then from Bend, there was one or two different ways to go to Washington that I was going to still go up and see the boots there, but then not do the Yellowstone, or maybe do the Yellowstone. I was kind of on the fence because, again, with the cousins and all that. Or bounce over to the coast and come down from Seattle. Play it by ear kind of thing. And so, again, a vacationer doesn't travel like this. A vacationer has a plan, makes a reservation, knows how many days they want to stay, knows about how much money they want to spend, has about so much in a budget, is willing to put up with this but not with that, will travel a little bit farther if it's a nicer deal, but only can go so far within the time frame, these kind of things. So I was trying to plan it as a vacationer making it into or as a day tripper making it into a vacation, right? So I had half a plan. And like I said, as the plans kind of slowly fell apart, the theme of the trip became less vacation and more day trip. So don't do it this way most of the time, but you can learn from my, blunders, I guess. And if nothing terrible happened. You just would have a better time if you have a specific goal, in certain respects. So again, like I said, Ojai, places like Ojai, everybody and their brother goes there for lunch. So it's super, same with Yosemite, I guess. Super congested, super, traffic for that like 3-hour jam. But if you go before that or after that, maybe you're fine, but then are you going to be able to make it home? So again, like if you're in LA and you want to go to like Yuba City or Sacramento or pretty much anything north of Fresno, you're not going to make it back probably, unless you're driving till 2 a.m. or something and really going to be miserable. And of course, if you're traveling with a companion, that adds complications. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And if you have children under 12, big shift of focus, right? So I can only address like part of everything. But I do want to be inclusive of if you're not just okay, so what I was going to try and do was coordinate with a gal who she doesn't have a YouTube channel that I know of, but she's trying to start her own kind of independent travel agency kind of business. And I thought it would be nice to take her along so she could document for her use some of the photos that we could both use, but also like where to stay, who actually has the best rates, who's kind of bogus. We wouldn't be able to stay at every place, but we'd be able to give, Yelpy reviews of things along the way. And I'm not going to go too much into that because, again, my needs as a day tripper are not the same as your needs as a vacationer. So my review, I might notice the things that you're going to miss if you go to some of the places where it doesn't affect me. And if I was taking her, she might be looking at it more as a vacationer than a day tripper. So there might have been some, not arguments, but like, what she wants to present to her clients, oh, yeah, it's fine if you're this, but not if you're the family of 4 kind of thing. You understand what I'm saying? Like her specific needs as a person is separate from her business, right? Again, her as a companion, if she wants a separate room, that's going to be a lot more money, blah, blah, blah. But that's not a normal vacationer issue in, if you're traveling as a family, you might still want a separate room for the children, but you're typically traveling as a couple, so you're getting a dog occupancy instead of 2 separate rooms. So the prices may vary. Again, I'm not going to get into all that granular stuff. That would be her department. So I thought this would be a good educational thing for her for that purpose. Anyway, more than my specific needs, like I said. So sorry, there won't be I'll speak about some of it a little bit. Obviously, the main, again, food is your cost, gas, fuel is your other cost, and lodging is your probably biggest cost. So what I'm finding is that even for a no-frills place, the lodging is overpriced for a lot. Obviously, gas prices are still fairly high, better in some places than others. Oregon and California are rated as the two highest ones or something in the country. So if you're out here, you already know you're factoring that in, I hope. Same as, like, you know, if you're factoring in, you want to go to the place where you always went with dad, you already know it costs this much. Maybe it went up. Oh, I can't believe it went up since I was 12. You know, will be a little more shocking. Oh, I can't believe it went up this much since last year. Like, oh yeah, no, it's $80. Fork it over. You know, $80. That's cheap. I didn't think I'd get here for that much. Et cetera, et cetera. Food, obviously, the first day I took stuff from home and didn't have to buy any food. So, yeah, I saved money. And then the second day it was like, Wendy's. Oh, yes, I definitely want Wendy's right now. You know, that kind of thing. Like I said, I'm not going to itemize all my receipts on the channel, but yeah. But I didn't overindulge. I had one, you know, Egg McMuffin instead of two, and I had, you know, one cheeseburger instead of the combo and that kind of thing. Just because I already had like a whole bag of chips in the car that I didn't even touch. Why do I want to buy French fries? Same exact thing, salty potatoes, right? And I do have water. I might lose my voice this time, so I'm trying not to let that happen for a change, because usually I don't drink liquid when I'm doing the videos, but sometimes it's and I don't want this to be the worst viewing experience ever. I did manage to take some photos. I used to, before I did the live feed, for those of you who haven't watched before, I used to intercut the photos and do a video format, but that video program doesn't work correctly on my machine anymore. So if you go to the community menu later today or tomorrow, I'll upload some of the good photos. Now, a sidebar for the Easter egg for those of you who know that I try to display art and stuff on this channel. Some of those photos have terrible lighting, but you can still tweak them and make a decent painting from them. That's part of the reason why I take the photos that I take instead of taking a lot of the typical photos that you might see kind of thing. I can't always get the best lighting because I don't have 6 hours to sit around and hope, excuse me, in a specific spot. If you were going to take photos in that regard, again, you're going to have to go as a vacationer more often than a day tripper. Because if you're waiting for really specific lighting, if you're waiting for this, if you're waiting for that, day tripper don't have time for that, even if they are on a vacation, right? I'm here for an hour until they open the cafe and I can get my drink and go. You know, that's kind of more the frame we're operating from on that level. And the other thing I really can't stand is backtracking, or it's not necessarily seeing the same thing twice is always bad, because sometimes I get a photo that I didn't get on the way up, and sometimes I still miss a photo on the way back because there won't be a safe way to get that photo. Like there's no place to put out. Sometimes I get that photo anyway because I'm willing to take certain risks. I don't necessarily advise that you take those risks. Trying to see where it is right now. Oh, there it is. I'm not going to crop most of these. Yeah, that one you can't really tell what's going on. There was a side of the road one here, and a side where it just shows like a little teardrop of water and a couple of trees. That was actually supposed to be longhorn cattle, but I don't think you can see the cattle. So anyway, so let's get to the meat of the thing 20 minutes later. Well, like I said, this is kind of an intro video, not just a go to this place video. So what ended up happening was, oh, in Yosemite, people are always dying in Yosemite going off falls in the river. Don't get those photos. You're not a professional. Okay. Disclaimer, warning, warning. I'm mostly talking about the actual street and the interstate. A lot of these places that you just can't pull over. And so it's, if you're all alone on the desolate highway, you might be able to get out of the car for a minute and get that shot before 15 trucks all of a sudden show up. I've had some pretty, not close calls where I was going to get run over, but close calls where I could have gotten run over, I guess. Or places where it just says no parking. I usually don't park if it says no parking, even though I haven't seen, a highway patrol or a sheriff at 800 miles or whatever. Still, it says no parking for a reason, right? So I was a little annoyed. In fact, side note, when I went to Texas, there's nothing around for 1,000 miles, but you couldn't spring for a little bit of extra asphalt for an emergency pull-off. I mean, I might be having car trouble here in the middle of endless eternity, and I might need to fix a flat or something and not want to do that in the middle of the road. I don't know, but I don't think that's Texas's fault. I think that's the federal interstate. But the roads are even worse, right? Or narrower, I should say. The condition of the road could be worse, but the width of the road is. I did get to drive on plenty of road construction condition roads, so at least they're fixing them right at the same time when everybody's trying to travel on them. Because don't do that in the spring or anything. Anyway, so this trip, or at least the first half of this trip, because I won't make this an hour-long video, but it'll still be pretty long to go. I'm going to talk about Central Coast in another one. I'm not going to go into all that right now. So Northern California and Southern Oregon, the main focus today, and I did, yes, make it to the actual Crater Lake. And this was the freebie that they hand out at the gate, although they might, I don't know if they change up the front page or if this is just the one they issue. Summer, fall 2025. So next year it'll say some slightly different stuff. Escape to Wizard Island, plus 10 other ways to enjoy your park, blah, blah, blah. So if you go, you get this. If you go, they have different fees. My fee was $30 for a single car. It's $15 if you walk in, I guess, for the backpack. But it is a decent hike, and it depends on where you're walking from, because it's big. There's a lot of different entrances. So I was at what I believe was called the Southern Rim entrance, coming up from California through Klamath Falls. So before I talk about Crater Lake extensively, I'll talk about that. So you got highlights to the rim drive, map of the lake, some other stuff. I didn't even look at any of this at all yet, but again, as a day tripper, I didn't have that much time to sit around and read. I just needed a map. I asked the guy if he had a map, and he gave me this paper, so that was perfect. Mostly because it has this inset map that I'm going to talk about more than the actual lake stuff, because, again, if you're interested, you'll figure all that out. So when I got to looking at the map, I knew I did not want to go up Interstate 5 hardly at all. If I didn't have to, I avoid it at all costs. I've been to Northern California lots and lots and lots of times. The problem with 101 is you have to go way out here, then kind of cut way back. So typically what I'll do is go up the 5 to Paso Robles exit 46, the Lost Hills Wasco one. not the other one that takes you. They both go to basically San Luis Obispo, but one of them takes, it seems like it takes longer and you're going farther to again have to come back. Whereas the Paso Robles one is, I think, the shortest distance between 5 and 101. And then from 101, I'm either going to San Jose area or Highway 1 Santa Cruz. Like I said, that'll be a separate video. I'll go into that now. Going to Santa Cruz. I did the Highway 1 the entire time once, and that was wonderful, but it takes forever. I think if you want to go to Big Sur and that kind of stuff, it's better to go up 101 to Monterey and then go south instead of winding. Anyway, like I said, I'll talk about that. It's just on my mind. If you're going to San Francisco and you just want to get there, like going straight up the 5 and then cutting over 880 or whatever, 80 or whatever it was the more preferred way. I think we came down. Yeah, we came down. One year we tried to come down on 101 and it was foggy. So we jumped over to the 5. One year I was going up the 5 and it was foggy. So we jumped over to 101 and it was not foggy. So there's always that too. I might as well throw that in there, that Interstate 5 can actually get fog. But anyway, this time I did not want to just go straight up I-5 through Sacramento. That sounded absolutely terrible. And a little bit, it was a little bit shorter distance, I think. For the first half, if I went through Fresno, and then longer if I went around through Chico and whatever the other one was, Oroville or someplace. But I hadn't been to those places, so I was like, well, I'm going to go through them anyway and add the 20 miles. I don't care. And I'll go through Chico and the other place and check them out. And because there's nothing, like I said, on I-5. And so I was astounded because I had not been to Yosemite in several years, how much the places above Turlock have all become these big sprawls now. Merced, Modesto. These were like 2-car towns, it seemed like, when I was young, and we would go through. And a girl had warned me a long time ago that Oakley, where we used to go, had become like no more grapevines, all condos. But I didn't go through Oakley this time. So anyway, there was one rest area. I don't know if it was Visalia or maybe a little bit above that. Super crowded, super busy. The next one was closed, and I had to go to the Valero, the gas station, to use the restroom. Then the next rest area at Turlock was decent, so I stopped there and had lunch. And that one had nice grassy area and this and that. The similar one way over on the Paso Robles side, on the other side of 46, that one was decent, but all the grass was dead because it's July. And the maps and things in the display cases, you couldn't read any of them. The plasticine or whatever was all kind of yellowed, and the printing was all sun faded and everything. So I was trying to use that map to remember if it was 46 or 58 that I wanted to take the cutoff. And took 46 anyway. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that's the shorter one. So yeah, different rest areas, different experiences, but I can't go into all that because I can't remember where all of them are. And I don't always stop at all of them. But when I was going through Texas, there was one that was a really nice one, and I should have stayed and slept there, at least for a couple hours, because the weather was actually better than the weather here. For a rare. Everyone's like, oh, but it's so hot and humid there. I was like, no, it was perfect. It was like 68 degrees and breezy, and California was 98 degrees and terrible. And we don't get a lot of humidity, but we do get humidity toward the end of summer-ish once in a while, and I think that was going on at the time. Anyway, so when I got to Sacramento, I thought I took the correct freeway and I actually took the wrong freeway and ended up on the Reno side. And I thought there was a road that would take me to Chico, but I wasn't positive. And so I stopped for directions in a place called Rockland, which is this super huge, sprawling, apparently affluent suburb now. There's a Porsche dealership and a Bass Pro Shops and all this other stuff. And if I had more time, I would have seen more of it. And nobody there knew what Chico was or where it was or how to maybe get there. And I was doing again, I didn't have travel brochure gal with me. So I was doing the play it by ear 80s traveler guy way that I like to do things. Because again, most of the places I've been through them before, I'm not super addicted to it, the phone and the map and all that, but it still would have been handy to have her along because like I said, I thought I took the right turn and then all of a sudden there was no way to get back and Sacramento is a nightmare and I didn't even want to be there in the first place and did not want to get lost in that town trying to find my way to the correct on-ramp back to 99. So I ended up, I don't know, they were a little ambivalent to give me directions. Is ambivalent the right word? I don't know. Reticent. So, well, I guess it doesn't go to Chico, but it goes, I guess 70 goes to Chico, that kind of, I'm like, it goes north, good enough, who cares? So I got on, I think it was 65 which linked to 70. And somehow I made it back to the 99 thing. I could not see anything of Chico. There was big walls, like a corridor, same as East St. Louis. Couldn't, and then there was trees for most of the rest. I had no sense, and I didn't need gas, so I was like, okay, well, guess I'm not stopping here then. And then not long after that, I decided I wanted gas anyway because I didn't know how far it was going to be to get gas, and I really, really, really had to use the restroom. So the place a little bit above, or actually, no, it was below Chico. Before I got, that's why I didn't need the gas because I had already stopped. Maybe I forget. Anyway, either or, I ended up with a full tank of gas and an empty bladder, so it all worked out. And but I could not tell you anything about Chico whatsoever. And there was some really probably slightly better scenery going that way than it would have been on the 99 from Sacramento. So fine, worked out. The added part of that trip that I didn't spend a ton of time at was Yuba City and Marysville, which were not on my original. I don't think they're on the main. They were kind of off to the side. And then there's this outcropping area called Butte or something. I don't know. And I don't know how you get to that, but I could see them and I could not get a photo. Well, I could have got a photo maybe if I really, really felt like it, but they're in the Wikipedia. I've seen them before and I was like, oh, that's the thing that I saw on Wikipedia that time. Okay. Now I'm where the place that I, because again, sorry, backtracking. When I first planned this trip 2 years ago, I had looked at all this stuff and it was all fresh in my head then. Now when I went, I was just blundering through going, oh yeah, I remember that was a place that I had seen 2 years ago that I wasn't going to go through. And now here I am in it. So I didn't really do it as a tourist where I was specifically going to Yuba City or Marysville and having a reason to look at historical architecture and all that kind of thing. I was just kind of driving by going, oh yeah. And then it was behind me because I didn't have time to take it all in because I had to get to where, even though I wasn't going there and then coming home, I was definitely going to a specific place more or less to try and sleep for the night. So I wanted to make it to at least Redding to do that. When I got to Redding, now we are on I-5. I think that would be a logical stop for most people. I think they had a lot of offerings in terms of motels and that sort of thing. Again, if you're not getting reservations, you're not staying there, but you just need a place to crash, that can be both. That can be either or. I think it's an okay place to make a base camp if you're doing the Mount Shasta stuff. And a lot of my photos, or the first half of my photos, are mostly Mount Shasta stuff, okay? So I am definitely not the Mount Shasta expert, but it is a nice visual thing. Some of the photos didn't really come out. Like, it's in the background and it's kind of washed out and you can't really tell what it is. The first one, I got the picture because I didn't know when I was going to get another picture, and it wasn't the picture that I wanted because you could not actually see Shasta Lake from where you could stop the car safely. So it's a tributary going into Shasta Lake. The second picture is Mount Shasta, but with clouds over it, blocking the actual mountain. Then I have a couple of the actual Shasta Mountain, and I don't know how many of these I'm going to post, but the next stop was weed. So I didn't end up staying in Redding. Again, if I had known what I know now, would I have picked Redding over weed? Either, again, if you have kids and stuff, maybe under 12s, and you need more civilized offerings, and that sort of thing, I would say Redding makes more sense, or possibly Klamath Falls. Klamath Falls, I was a little scared at first because I was like, it was another one similar to Chico where I couldn't really see what was what from the interstate, or it's not interstate anymore, but the freeway, the highway. I couldn't, if I can't see this town and get a sense of what's useful to me, I usually pass it by. Because again, I just want to drive through, get gas, and use your bathroom. I just want to eat a burger and get in my car. I don't want to spend 3 days here. Not because necessarily the place is bad, but because I'm going to a different place. So I probably, like I said, would recommend Redding more. But for my purposes, weed was actually better. Except it meant missing a lot of the Lake Shasta stuff that I probably personally would have enjoyed more than just being stuck in a car and driving past it. But when I got to weed, it was basically sundown. I couldn't really go that much farther. In my previous trip from last year planning, it was going to be Klamath Falls where I stopped. This time it was weed. Klamath Falls, I was going, like I said, I was worried for a minute there that I was not going to find any of those kind of motels and stuff. They're all there. They're just a little bit farther up than you thought they were. So it was like, oh, okay, I got gas in a panic, and now I'm passing by all the places where I could have slept. But if I had slept there, I wouldn't have gotten these photos that I got in the morning because I would have just drove past all of them and then not wanted to, again, backtrack all the way back, because I was debating, well, should I go back through Redding again just so I can get some of those other photos, see some of these other things, yada, 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 and I didn't end up doing that. So that'll have to be a separate trip sometime. And I think that if you're in California and you're from California, seeing Crater Lake is one thing, but I think if you're, again, you want to do the fishing thing, you want to do the hiking thing, you want to do this and that, I think you would be better off either in Redding or Weed and the Shasta area and seeing what that has to offer than even necessarily going up into Oregon. Crater Lake is a destination that you want to see the actual lake. So that Reese Witherspoon movie, now this is not my favorite movie. This is more of a girl's personal journey with her own, struggles and blah, blah, blah. And then it has this kind of eat, pray, love moment at the end where they're like, you have to go to Crater Lake. It's a religious experience. Okay, it wasn't a religious experience. It was, a hole with water in it. A big hole with water. Water in a hole. It is literally the title of the place. Crater Lake. a crater, and water. That's it. Take away all the mysticism, and it's a pretty view. Okay, that was the kind of the point of it. Now, if you're going to do, again, the stuff around the rim and the stuff that this and that, again, I'm not the expert because we're coming at it from the day trip, and I'm positive that half of the people there were all from Medford, right? They literally can get there in a few hours and have lunch and go home. Same as Yosemite, right? If you live near it, you just go to it. It's a thing. You ride your bike around for a couple hours, whatever. You go back, you hike around, you try a different spot, Oh, let's see if we can make it to this one without having to, sleep in the car or whatever. Fine. If you live in Oregon, you already know, you don't need to hear me talk about it. If you're coming from California, though, then yeah, you really have to plan. The problem is, okay, the $30 covers me for a week, so I can go back tomorrow if I really want to drive all the way there. But so they're making money off it, idiots like me who are. I was only there for about 2 hours, but I wasn't going to do all of this driving and all of this walking and all this other thing when I had other things that I wanted to kind of do. So could you spend 2 or 3 days there easily? Probably, if you're motivated to not just stare at the lake every single day. But the issue, again, not the expert, but pretty sure there's no place to get gas or food here. So you're constantly having to go up and down 30 miles to Klamath, or actually it's like 30 miles into the park and then more back to Klamath or something, wherever your base camp is going to be. What's the other one? Chumult. What's the Chumult? That's the other nearest town. There's Joaquin, I don't know how you pronounce that. On this side, again, I was going up this specific route. What's on the west? There might be a couple places that are a little bit closer. We got Lincoln. Can I read this? Is that Lincoln Creek? Maybe something Creek. You might be able to get gas there. I don't know. And then there's a Diamond Lake that may or may not be a town. Don't know. So yeah, but if I have to go all the way back basically to Klamath Falls every single day, that's a long drive. Again, if you have kids, going back and forth, like you'd have to figure out how else. If you're camping, it's one thing. If you're again, not my style to do. That's a lot of time and gas to keep going back and forth if you haven't figured out how to. And you better bring a couple of coolers full of food or something. So between Klamath Falls and this Chumult, that's a pretty long stretch. If you didn't pack a lunch and you don't have gas, you are hurting, especially the lunch. I had pretty much run out of food that I wanted to eat. And yeah, I was miserable for a fair portion of this. I didn't do any hiking, so I still had my granola bars. That's usually kind of my energy food. I ate one of them in the car and saved one of them for later. Yeah, that was long. I don't even remember what I ended up. I could have eaten in Chumult, and I probably should have, but I had like one bit of croissant at the lake, and I thought that would tide me over. And not quite. So Klamath, like I said, I'm not going to be able to give you a decent rundown. There's no actual falls in Klamath Falls. My sister had taken a photo years ago, and I thought it was by a waterfall, and she had always said Klamath Falls. And I don't know if she meant Klamath Lake or Crater Lake. It might be Crater Lake, and I'm just remembering it wrong. But so I was like, I stopped at the gas station and I said, "Woman, where are the falls? Where did I get this photo?" And the woman said, "Well, they used to have a fake one years ago that they made, kind of for a joke, and people used to pose by that. Do you think it was that?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe, but it looked legit." And she's like, "Well, there's other falls farther north." and she did actually go to some caves that I'll talk about later. She was recommending me to the caves, but the caves, okay, this map is really small and everything is not on this map, but the caves are like way over here somewhere, almost to California. This line could almost be the ocean, and this line might as well be the California border, because here you got Medford, pretty close to California. So the caves thing, she hypes it to me. It's $20 for an adult or something, and it's somewhere in this region. But so I'm calling her and I'm trying to tell her about my trip, because she's trying to plan her trip, you know, in the future maybe, and because she's already done a bunch of this other stuff, so she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. She wants to tell me about the stuff she enjoyed. But it's kind of like somebody saying, hey, I'm in Reno. What's fun here? And they go, no, San Francisco has way more streets than Reno. What are you doing there? Okay, Reno and San Francisco are 600 miles away, right? Not useful, not helpful. These caves are not here. They're way over here. So if I wanted to do the caves, I should have gone up through Medford and turned left, not go to Crater Lake through Weed, okay? Because Weed is way over here, not way over here. So I did not go to Bend, fortunately, I guess. I don't know, fortunately. It would just been too much backtracking. I didn't want to go all the way down to Medford, so I knew I didn't want this route. I thought this was the one the Rangers were telling me to take, but it turns out they were, I think, telling me to take this one that goes to Roseburg. And I'm pretty sure I stopped at Roseburg. Maybe. I don't remember. Have no memory of it anyway. Might have been there. Don't know. But I did not go that way. I went the other way to Eugene. So I finally made it to Eugene. But from Crater Lake, leaving at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because I got there way later than I thought I would, even though I left earlier than I thought I would. And then it took time to backtrack through all this place where there's no gas and no food. And one rest area where the guy emptying the trash cans was pretty helpful. He had some decent information, but you might not get him when you go there. I got lucky. So yeah, Tumult is, I guess, not your best bet, but your only bet. So then, as part of this, I took all of the 58 to Eugene. Now, along here, this is where these are the guys that I'm talking about, vacationers. They have lots of, not hidden, but pull-off kind of places where I guess if you already knew about which one you like, I guess you'd have to try different ones, different times, and figure out, okay, from the future, this one, not this one. Don't go to Larry's campground, go to Jerry's campground, that kind of thing. And so you could really make reservations and figure out where to go. And same thing when I was leaving Weed in... Oh, and everything in Weed is South Park jokes, but it's not actually that. The guy's name was Abner Weed, and I took a picture of his statue. I already kind of knew that. So we'll dispense with all the dumb jokes and the silly T-shirts and things that I don't buy. And Crater Lake has a lot of merch. There was one hat that I liked that was $40, $42. And another one that I liked a little bit less that was $30, but I didn't buy either of them because they're both mesh trucker hats, and I don't wear those very often, and I already have 3 of them. So sorry, Crater Lake, I didn't buy a hat, and I didn't buy any of the other stuff, and I didn't really go into the gift shops and the information centers and all that kind of thing. If I was spending more time, I would have done that. But I was trying to get to Eugene to check it out, and of course, by the time I got to Eugene, it was already 5 p.m., and almost anything useful would have been closed, and it was the wrong day of the week, and da-da-da. I don't know how much of a zoo Crater Lake is on a weekend. I imagine Sunday is worse. But in the summer, even on a weekday, it's still pretty good luck finding parking. You do have to sit in a decent line to get into the park, to pay the money for the pass, unless you walk up in. Now, if you're going to walk up in, that's a bit dangerous, like I was saying about trying to get those photos, because there was a photo that I wanted, but I definitely wasn't going to stop on that part of the street. And there was a turnoff maybe a mile or two up, and I did not even want to walk that far for that photo. Fortunately, I was able to get a similar photo from the lodge. So you'll see that one. There's a vista. And I'm not sure if you can see all the way down to the Klamath River from there or not, but we'll pretend that was it, even though it probably wasn't. It was probably some different one. But there's a similar view. I have a photo somewhere of Mount Baldy, Mount San Antonio. But I'm not sure which one's the higher elevation. I mean, I know Mount Baldy's a higher elevation overall, but I don't know if where I took the photo is a higher elevation. So anyway, so in the Eat, Pray, Love, they, like I said, they act like, it's some, the weirdest thing for me was the fact that I'm down coming through this big valley and you can't even see which mountain is the actual crater, which is an actual volcano, right? But so for a little while, you're following this gorge, and a lot of people are stopping and taking photos of that. I took one. I don't know if my photo's better than theirs. I doubt it. But where the rocks are all kind of exposed, and you're finally seeing gray granite or whatever instead of all this endless blonde grass. If you don't know, Oregon and California are pretty redundant until you get to certain microclimate areas or whatever. So Tehachapi and Redding look almost exactly the same, even though they're miles and miles and miles apart. It's only when you get to the Ponderosa Pines and some of these other pines that I don't know what they are. So this whole not interstate, but Highway 58. I was seeing a lot of different kinds of trees, and I wish I could have documented all of them, but there's no place to pull off the road except for these campsites. That, again, if you knew Larry or Jerry or which one, maybe you'd stop there and you could get all the photos that I couldn't get. But I was literally trapped on this road for hours and hours and hours with nowhere to go to the bathroom, nowhere to get food. No, again, Chemot was your shot. So if you are a day tripper, by the time you almost get to Eugene, there was a little town called something. I don't think it's on this map. It is not. It just says national forests, and I went through, I think, 3 different ones. And I can't think of the names right now, but you can find it pretty easily because the Klamath one, and then the other one, and then the other one. Didgeridoo or something. Again, I'm not the guy who gets granular on that kind of stuff. Again, why I wanted to bring Gal Pal, and I could then tell you, oh, check out her site, and it'll have all that information that I'm not going to memorize or have no way to write down in a car while I'm driving through. And it's all on Wikipedia anyway, right? But so yeah, when I got near Eugene, there was kind of a little town, and the gas station said the bathroom doesn't work. You have to run across the highway. I'm probably going to say interstate 15 times, and I don't mean interstate, I mean highway. So I literally had to run across the highway to go to the bathroom at the Dairy Queen. But at least I got to wash my windshield, because on the way to Crater Lake, and above Crater Lake, even worse, this time of year, all monarch butterflies, and they have nothing better to do but fly at your windshield at 60 miles an hour, or however fast you can manage to get. It couldn't go too fast. There was one area with these teepees, and I wanted to get a photo of that, and I didn't either way, even though I passed it twice. So get a photo for that and post it in my comments, I guess. But so I'm cruising along. Oh, the teepees, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's kind of cool. This is kind of, and then all of a sudden you're in the woods, and you're going, oh, okay, woods. Finally, must be getting near something. Okay, I'm in the woods. Like I said, you can't actually see the volcano or anything, but you can see some other ones in the distance for a minute there. And Shasta Mountain is pretty well behind you now. You can't see that anymore. But there's a mini Shasta Mountain that looks a lot like it a little bit farther north. So I'm kind of like, oh, look, Shasta's little brother. Cool. All of a sudden, so if you are on 58 and your entire windshield gets covered in less than 20 minutes in butterflies, and you crash into somebody, I'm not sure if your insurance company will call that negligence. There's nowhere to pull over and clean my windshield. Fortunately, I had just done the oil change, so I had plenty of wiper fluid. Usually, I don't know, my car has none for some reason. But that smears more than it cleans sometimes, and makes it actually worse. I found, spoiler alert, I found a gas station on I-5 that actually stocks like a lot of good white washer wiper fluid in the bucket thing. Most of the ones around here are terrible. So I finally had clean windows, except then I had to wash all the butterflies off the car and wreck the windows with the, you know, water spots. I'll never have windows that clean again unless I want to drive 2 hours back up to, it wasn't the Taft one, it was the one south of the Taft. Pilot, I think it was. Go there and clean your windows if you're in the area. If you need a day trip just to get clean windows, go there. So yeah, I don't know if your insurance company would call that an act of God instead of a negligence claim. Either way, danger, Will Robinson. Be prepared for that. The butterflies exist only to smash into your car. Yes, I did get asked if I was a ranger by one woman. I was not wearing, well, the thumbnail will show you, I was wearing this particular hat, which is the worst hat I own, but I didn't care because I can just sweat in it. And it's not the full breezer one that has a little bit more, I don't know, sunburn protection or whatever, but it's, I could have wore the full breezer one and I just did this one instead. So it has a little bit of breezer through the crown and has the chin strap, so I don't have to worry about the wind. And it's nylon, so I can just hose it off. But I was wearing this shirt, not a khaki one, which hasn't gotten washed yet because I'm still wearing other, I got to wear some other green stuff. I wore the light blue pants because I wasn't sure what kind of situation it was going to be with ticks or whatever. So the shirt matches those pants, but I didn't wear this shirt. I wore that shirt. But yeah, I wore the light blue pants. I did pack the one pair of boots, but I did not end up needing them. Although in the car, I think I would have been more comfortable in sneakers. I thought I would wear these and then changing to the boots when I got to the lake, but everything at Crater Lake is basically paved. Okay, some of the pavement's kind of in, they need to redo it, but for the most part, it's old people and children friendly, and it's a touristy place where they're trying to sell merch. So it's all laid out. It's all, you know, again, if you're going to go off the beaten path and go down and hike around and all that, then you might need some actual kind of stuff that I packed that I didn't use. These were kind of killing my feet to be in the car for hours and hours and hours. That's why I'm saying I might have preferred sneakers. I think I had them tied a little too tight. I think my feet swelled a bit when it was warmer than expected. Part of the reason that I wanted to make the trip was because Oregon was supposed to have really better weather than here for the week, and it actually did rain and have thunderstorms a little bit, but not at a time that mattered. Just time enough to wash my windows clean the first night or whatever. But so these are the LL Bean, whatever they call them. I did a video about these already, and yeah, they were fine. I still got to clean them. They're a bit dusty. And I wore a pair of cargo pants that are just not a lightweight twill, not a regular heavy duty khaki. So yeah, that was basically my outfit for 2 days straight or whatever. I didn't need to roll up the sleeves, although other people were complaining that they were warm because it was 70 something degrees. I don't know where they lived, that they thought that was hot. I was like, what are you talking about? This is perfect. This is amazing. If I could get food and gas here at Crater Lake, I would definitely stay for 3 more days and just enjoy that it is not warm. Enjoy that it is completely perfect weather and drive through the butterflies later, some other day. So So yeah, when I got to Eugene, it was 90 degrees at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, oh my God, why did I drive here? This is not what I thought I was going to get. Again, Eugene is not a beach town. It seems like it should be a beach town, but it is not a beach town. In fact, the first thing I saw when I got to Eugene, well, I met this friendly girl who was waiting for her ride. She had just got off work, and she was chatting with me for a minute, telling me, not in specifics of anything she likes to go to, but, you know, don't go down that street. It's all houses. Go this way if you want, you know, food and that kind of stuff. Again, Travel Channel gals MO more than my channel MO, so I won't get totally into it. So I said, fine, thank you to her, and went around the corner, and the first thing I saw was a bunch of paramedics attending to a homeless person who was being revived, and another homeless person watching, and a bunch of other ones on the next corner just sitting there, and all that kind of thing. I would say Grants Pass has a fair amount of them also. I didn't really, you know, see too many people other than travelers, you know, a lot of these other spots. But I didn't spend a lot of time in these other spots. So couldn't give you the total rundown of Redding or, you know, Yuba City or whatever. Yeah, but the clodhopper boots, yeah, I took them, but I definitely did not want to drive in them. These are not quite that bad. They're new, so they were a little stiff trying to wear them for 36 hours straight or whatever. So I left Reed at like 8:15. I thought I was getting out of there kind of early. I thought I might have a little bit of time to relax and have a breakfast and that sort of thing. There wasn't much, again, in terms of the town that might interest a vacationer. If you're a day tripper and you're kind of passing through, you know, like I said, I was geeking out on all the local spots for more of a photo thing, for painting ideas. A lot of the painting ideas, I didn't crop these photos much. I only cropped like one or two. If you're a painter, you know to omit the chevron sign and the, you know, road construction sign and this and that kind of thing. The problem is I couldn't get a good lighting, like I said. So some of the stuff on the building, like you can't read, you know, if it's, you know, mercantile works or whatever it says on the old sawmill. And there was a couple spots in Doris. I should have stopped and taken more photos of Doris, but then it would have taken me longer to get to Crater Lake, and then it would have taken me longer to get to Eugene. So the fact that I made it all in one day was probably kind of a miracle. Again, you probably don't want to travel the way I travel, but I'm not going for, you know, sitting in a boat fishing for 3 days like at the Klamath or at the Shasta or the places up on this 58. I think there's 2 rivers or something that kind of flow next to that are just kind of ideal. One of them you can see on here. It kind of follows the highway. And that was the one I was seeing through the trees. But again, couldn't get a picture. Nowhere to stop to get a picture of that. There's a lake over here above Tumult that might be accessible. And then there's another one south of that that's probably accessible, but it doesn't list any names on this map. This, again, if you're looking at a map of Oregon, you know, how does he not know that that's Joe's Lake? Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I didn't see a road leading to it, or that I knew of by memory, and it wasn't on my itinerary. Like I said, obviously when I got to Eugene, everything's already, like I said, pretty much closed that normal people would want. or people who have jobs are leaving from, which is why you got all the traffic on the road. But lucky that I was able to get one helpful, useful person to tell me some information instead of the transients and the you know, college kids or whatever. Although school technically out right now, but it seemed like there was student people floating around by the campus still, even in July. The campus is like right there. That was the exit I took on purpose for reference reasons. So I got off the freeway at Broadway or whatever it's called and just went right straight through. Now, like I said, if this has been a beach town, what would have happened is when that downtown area ended, or there was like a bridge or something, and I think that leads to kind of a warehouse district. I'm not sure. In a beach town, that would be where you have your Strand shops and then your ocean. That, you know, like I said, that's for another video. But when I talk about, you know, Solvangs and Carpinterias and Santa Cruzes and all that kind of thing, we'll get more into that. So that's kind of what I'm more. Oh, Seal Beach. That's kind of what I'm used to. It's like, yeah, there's this kind of business district. Some business districts are more tourist friendly and some are not. And so obviously, if you're a tourist, you're going to rate the beach based on that, maybe. Oh, I couldn't even find a place to get a t-shirt, you know, that kind of thing. Crater Lake, you can get a t-shirt, no problem. There's like 3 different gift shops, no problem. I just didn't get one. And like I said, I was tempted to get a hat, but I have 8 billion hats, so didn't. And I did get, so side note, my mom said, oh, she thought you were a forest ranger. That'd be a good job for you if you should look into that someday, you know. Not really my first choice, but because people always ask me that. Same as when I used to go to bookstores, they'd always be like, oh, where do I find, it's like, well, okay, it's kind of like my personal library, so sure, I'll help you out. No, I don't think I would like being a ranger, because the problem with being a ranger is you have to answer the same questions over and over and over, and I just get sick. There might not even be stupid people, and I'm still going to be like, it's over there. You know, no, not my skill set. Hey, a bear ate my kid. What do I do? Get another kid. What do you think? Duh. So anyway, okay, so this has been over an hour, a little bit longer than I thought I would talk to get to a dad joke, but I think I covered pretty much most of the first half. Okay, so anyway, if there's any questions, you can always put them in the comments, and I'll try and answer them. Like I said, I'm going to do another video that'll talk more. But I do want to talk about this. This is the next part of the journey. Instead of the airplane museums and the other side trips. So going out above Eugene, I didn't bother with that. And Bend and Eugene are about the same distance above wherever. So whichever way you go, it's about the same distance depending on what you're trying to accomplish. That's not the issue. Again, the issue is having enough, gas or whatever when you leave Klamath or Medford, maybe. Although Roseburg again exists. But so going back to those caves, that is a separate route. Now this Grants Pass, there's some historical sites or whatever. I didn't really see those. It was already getting dark. Same as Eugene, or worse than Eugene, actually. But there's a road that goes past that. The guys at the one place were pretty helpful. They mentioned some names of towns that I thought I was going to roll through, but then I didn't see those towns. I don't know what I did wrong or where they are on the map. I don't know, something with a B, Brookings City or Brooklyn City or Brookline or something like that. Oregon people will be all, so it turns out that, because I didn't look at a proper map before, I only had an Oregon map to look at, which was a little bit more detailed than this one. Brookings? I don't know. Crescent City, anyway. Crescent City, similar to Redding, would be the place I would say you might want to use as a base camp if you're going to do Central Coast stuff. It's a little bit tricky to get there, though, because you either have to go, like I said, you're going this way or you're going down the coast, maybe. Or going. Otherwise, you're going through, if you go up 101, it's kind of the same thing. Eureka, there's nothing useful below Eureka until you get to like Willits, or there's a little place near Willits where I got gas. Very long, winding road, a lot of redwood trees growing right next to the road, a lot of impatient people that want to get around you constantly, and there's some passing lanes, but not always where they want them. A lot of trucks that want to run you down or flash you in the face with your high beams and all this kind of thing. I don't recommend doing any of that drive at night. I did most of it after dark, and I missed all the stuff that I wanted to see. So if I had been smart, but I didn't know this, again, because I didn't have travel gal with me, sleep at the Crescent City and then do the drive down in the daylight. You'll enjoy it a lot more. Eureka, well, at least I didn't have any traffic because there was only one other creep on the road. And fortunately, he wasn't looking for me. He was doing something else. And road construction everywhere, all through there, all through everything between, I don't know, what was that town south of Willits, whatever. All tore up roads. In the couple hours that I spent at the rest area, I tried to sleep for like 3 hours in one, and I didn't have much success. So that's when I said, well, I'm super uncomfortable in the car. I'm just going to do more of the drive and, sleep at this Eureka or the next. I ended up sleeping at Eureka. I ended up sleeping after Eureka at whatever that place was. And that worked out fine because then I was able to get on the road and I got my McDonald's and had my gas already. I got the gas right before the rest area, so I didn't have to worry about gas. And then from there, the giant sequoias, the King's Drive, whatever that, I didn't get to see any of that. I got to see some of it with high beams, so it kind of wasted. I'd like to go back to that, but I don't know how much I would like driving from whatever that town was to Eureka. And Eureka looked, for a beach town, I wasn't that impressed with seeing it, but I was seeing it at night and, from the interstate. There was some Travelodgy kind of places in that, but like I said, the Crescent City and the Redding kind of reminded me of each other, like a lot of, motel kind of stuff, catering to the vacationer, but the vacationer who's passing through also. So I don't know if it's a good day tripper spot, but if you're a day tripper and you're past where you want to be, then maybe. For me personally, the stuff between Eureka and Crescent City is the stuff that I actually want to see. Is getting to it is almost impossible. It's why I haven't really gotten to do it before, and why I didn't really want to go through there at night. I wanted to go there first thing in the morning, but since there was nowhere, same as the Highway 58, for me to pull over or park or get gas or use a restroom, I literally couldn't do what I wanted to do, which was stop at a next rest area. Like I said, I left the one rest area just because, and I guess if I'd stayed there another 2 hours, maybe I would have finally slept, but I was so uncomfortable in the car that it was better to be driving uncomfortable than to be trying to sleep and not sleeping uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Because again, I didn't know that I should have stopped at Crescent City. Stop at Crescent City, pay the money, sleep. At least I saved $100 or whatever on a night, but I had a very uncomfortable night and missed a big chunk of what I wanted to didn't go there specifically to see it, but would have wanted to see it, right? And I don't remember the name of the town because it was early in the morning and I didn't care. Again, travel gal would be able to tell you. But I did stop at the McDonald's and had my egg McMuffin or sausage muffin, and that was fine. And boom, boom, boom. And so then the next, so yeah, like I said, the next bit, you know, Santa Rosa, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, you know, Monterey, brain farting names. But anyway, that should be a separate video, so I won't get into that now. It is a decent drive from Eureka to San Francisco, but totally doable in a day, I would say. So I think if you're in San Francisco and you really, really wanted to go to the giant woods, but you didn't want to spend a night at Crescent City, you could probably make it there and back. It might be pushing it. It might be annoying. But I think that's doable. So if San Francisco is your starting point, you know, again, Yosemite's within reason. Some of these other places are in reason. If you're starting from Los Angeles, it's like, that's why you can't go to Santa Cruz and stuff like that for a day trip. It's just not doable. It's not that much gas. It's really only a couple tanks, but it's just the drive. You have to drive so far. And then to enjoy it, you really want to spend more than one night, or you're not seeing, you're rushing, you know. So, you know, again, yeah, so this has been a little bit longer than I thought, but not treacherous, right? So I'm going to shut up now and stop there. And as always, leave your questions in the comments and I'll try and say something smart. And I don't know what I'm forgetting, but I think I got through pretty much everything.